Hi everyone, this is Michaela Wardeman. My article that I am focusing on for this assignment is called Area Conception Sprout on Earth Day. This was for a third grade lesson and it focused on perimeter and area concepts. It was within the context of gardening, and students were examining rectangles within the same perimeter to see if and how their areas differ. The lesson I felt like was very hands-on, and its intentions were to go beyond the formula for area, and students investigated to see if the same perimeter of fencing would affect the area. So how they started was they first told us or gave us an idea of kind of what third grade focuses on when it comes to area. First, they have to recognize that it is a plane figure and understand that a square with the side of one unit is a unit square. And then by measuring tiling figures and counting the squares it takes to cover without gaps or overlapping, and then relating the area to the operations of multiplication and addition. This was about a 3-day lesson is how they split it up. On the first day, they just had students take time to draw gardens and see how many different combinations they could come up with 16 feet of fence. They were also allowed to use popsicle sticks if they wanted to, and then they had a discussion time where they were comparing each other's drawings. I really found it interesting to see their different drawings they came up with, because this is exactly what we would see in a classroom as well. One student made loops and he wasn't able to figure out how to close his garden up because he didn't understand how he needed to space his fence pieces out. This student was able to come up with a 4x4x4x4 to make their 16. This student had different size lengths. They added up to 16 but didn't have proportionally sized lengths. This student kind of had the same issue, came up with the 16 but wasn't thinking about how we probably want our garden to look like. And then the last student came up with this kind of the same idea, two different sides that were the same length and two other ones that were the same length. Then they gave them popsicle sticks after their drawings to come up with, and it seemed like students had an easier time with the popsicle sticks because it was something physical that they had to use, and were able to space them out and move them around as needed, and were able to close their garden. So that was more of a visually pleasing thing for them to be able to do. Then they kind of narrowed down their options. Students realized that I could turn this garden plot, well, all the garden plots for that matter, the opposite direction. So they narrowed it down to the 4 main garden plots. And then they were trying to figure out which one would be able to plant the most plants because it had the biggest area. And there was discussion there with that, and students either agreed or disagreed with each other, but there was good discussion going on with that. That was mostly day 2 then, was coming up with which garden was going to have the biggest area for them to plant, and they were making predictions that way to see what they could do. Well, as they were making those predictions, students came up with different strategies on how they could figure out which one had the biggest area. Some students took their tiles and they filled the whole thing up to see how many they could fit inside. Some students took popsicle sticks and spaced them out to figure out the area. This student just used one square and then marked it with their finger to see where they were, and then moved their square over and counted that way. This student did a couple across the bottom and then a couple across the side and just counted to figure out how many he needed from there instead of laying them out to fill up the whole square. Then at the very end, they actually made their little garden in a box, and they plotted out how far away they wanted to space their seeds, and were able to come up with how many plants they could plant in their own little in-class garden. I really liked this lesson. I think I could use this for 5th grade as well to give them more of a hands-on visual for area, especially if I have students that are struggling with that concept. I think we could also carry this over into volume if we made an in-class garden like this, and we could figure out the volume of soil that we wanted to put inside our container. So I was really excited to see this activity, and I hope maybe to be able to use it one day in my own classroom to help students who are struggling with perimeter area and volume concepts.